Hey, so the end of 2023 seems like it came about as fast as it started. On some level, like time just whoosh went on by, and it's a lot of changes have happened. I talked about some of them in a different little think piece when I was going over like my year of being a whole grown up, staying at this space, and it caused me to consider like what's next. And what's next is actually what's present, right? Like the seeds of tomorrow is scattered about the field of today. So it's a matter of noticing what's here in the present that's giving me joy, that's causing me to be nourished and be healthy from the internal all the way out, living through in my fullness. Like what is currently in my life that's helped that to happen, right? That would be what I keep to build and add on as the year ends up and we move on to 2024, if life lasts and the Lord allows. What I noticed in the past, there have been times when if I wasn't, if there wasn't joy or a sense of happiness, fulfillment, contentment in my present, I would spend the latter half of the year in some sort of anxious resentment, right? Like hating now and can't wait for next time or next. But there was no peace there. I could function, but it wasn't much peace. It was like, you know, very angsty. But that's not really happening right now. And at a different time in my life, I would have interpreted that nothing going on as boredom or a need for me to have a sense of striving, like, oh, I resent this aimlessness, kind of. But I'm I'm encouraging myself right now to lean into it a little bit because I'm not aimless. I know where I'm going. It's just that the stages of this newness is very small and little. And it's contrary to the part of me where large for the large portion of my adult life was very much do have to do, gotta do, can't afford to not do, some things where everything seemed much more urgent. So where things are calmer now, there's a temptation to resist that stillness. There's a temptation to interpret it poorly, like I'm not producing enough, I'm not doing enough. Now, this is where it helps to be able to be honest with myself because there are some things that actually need to be done. I am I want to write a novel, which means at some point I need to be writing the novel. So I don't need to, there's no need in times when I'm doing other things or writing other things for me to say, oh, I'm not working fast enough, because that could be a part of it, right? The feedback, the ideas, the that part of that writing muscle is definitely, at least for me, can be a use it or lose it. Like if I let myself get in too much of a rut of not doing it, it's a difficult place. I can have some difficulty settling back into that. Um, but I'm working it through. But even that, when we learn to mine the treasures from places we find ourselves stuck, even that, I've learned ways to get through that rough patch quicker and with more ease and less anxiety. So some, if that's interesting, I can talk about it. I probably will anyway because I just like to talk. But as long as I'm talking, I'm gonna say something useful. Um, yeah. So I can get through those spaces a little more easily. I don't have to approach those periods of stillness as though something has gone wrong or something that I'm anticipating isn't coming or isn't coming fast enough. Uh, because everything has a process of time. attached to it, and not like calendar, you know, loosen myself from that strict definition of time as in something that can be measured or has to be measured has helped me a lot. Because you can't put on a calendar when a flower grows. You can't. We can say it takes this period of measure, some sort of estimate, but all of that still has a sense of variation. It's not definitive, and we don't schedule what needs to be done for the growth of the flower according to that schedule of when it says it ought to happen. Like, that's kind of backwards. You have to do the things first, and then you get to notice what happened while you were doing it and measure time that way. Like, you have to measure it backwards, which, brings me to my most favorite thing, which is the practice of presence. Noticing that in this moment, all is well. There's nothing to be anxious about. And nothing has to mean exactly what any emotion or feeling or something outside of myself is telling me in that moment. It also doesn't mean I need to act on the first impulse that comes up inside in the moment either, right? I can catch it somewhere in the middle and look at it and weigh it against a couple other things and decide. I hope that connects to what I was talking about in the beginning. I always end up here. Like, where was I? But anyway, just sharing a little bit of my bullshit. You can share a little bit of your bullshit. Then we can get to the real shit, ourselves, highest internal truths. And the world will be better. It's a lot of change happening right now, and it can be scary, but we don't have to live in a state of fear or like we don't know, because we can know ourselves. And that in itself that's everything. You know yourself, you know who you are and how you're connected and what it takes to hold you together while everything else is woo, 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 woo. All right.